Hey, hello guys, this is Karthik from executeautomation.com and welcome to Selenium Tidbits. So in today's Tidbits, we're going to talk about Selenium Grid. And in this particular video, we're going to talk about understanding and configuring the Selenium Grid. So as you all know, that Selenium Grid is for distributed testing of your application, and you can run the test in any machines with any operating system with any browsers, right? So Selenium Grid, and this is a official definition which I found from Google, and you can also find the same from Google. So Selenium Grid allows you to run your test on different machines against different browsers in parallel, and that's very, very important. It also allows you to run the same test parallelly, not just sequentially. That is, running multiple tests at the same time against different machines running different browsers and operating systems, which is what I told before. Essentially, Selenium Grid supports distributed test execution, right? So distributed architecture, and that is pretty important. And we're going to make a super simple distributed architecture here. And I'm going to demonstrate the same of how a Selenium grid architecture looks like. So basically, distributed architecture of Selenium grid looks something like this. We will have a Selenium server and we will have set of nodes something like this, and these are nothing but our clients. So basically these nodes will try to register with the Selenium server, which is nothing but the hub. So node basically registers with the Selenium server, which is hub, right? And now while you try to execute a test from the WebDriver, which is nothing but your Eclipse, so this request directly goes to the server, and the server knows that, okay, so this particular request has to be served into this particular client. And this particular client actually has these kinds of operating system and these kinds of browser. So let's run this test in this particular setup. So basically, Selenium server act as a router here to send your request to the registered nodes, right? So this is how this whole distributed architecture works in particular Selenium grid environment. And this particular setup is called as Selenium grid, right? So node and hub. Now the question is how to make the Selenium server act as a node and a hub, because we don't have a separate jar files for a node or a hub. Basically both of them are pretty much the same. So how to make them as a node and hub? So Selenium server act as hub, and as discussed in the architecture, Selenium server can be turned into a node or a hub, and the simple command to do is this: java-jar Selenium server jar file that you have to place, and then you have to tell that the role is going to be hub. That's it. It's pretty straightforward and pretty simple, right? So for executing a jar file, java-jar and the jar file that you have to specify, that is pretty generic. And the only thing you have to specify here to make your Selenium server act as a hub is just to specify the role as hub. That's it. And how to make Selenium server act as a node? To make Selenium server act as a node, first we need to have a address of the hub, including the port number, and then we need to assign the particular role for that particular Selenium server. So let's say your server is running in a IP address of 192.168.0.6, and that's going to be your hub. And if you want to register your node to the particular IP address, then you have to explicitly tell that particular IP address into your node. So now as you can see the command here, there is something called java-jar and the same command for executing the jar file. And here we're going to specify the role not as node but as WebDriver, right? And we are saying that the hub is actually running into this particular IP address with this port and slash grid slash register. So we have to specify this particular URL to register your node into the hub. Pretty straightforward and simple. And we are telling a port here. This is pretty optional. You can specify or you don't even have to specify, but I just specified because I explicitly want to use this particular port into my machine, right? So this is just the address, right? So once this is done, you are all set to go for your Selenium grid execution. So now any request you want to pass from your client machine, from your server to the node, you can just do because your node is now registered to the particular Selenium server, which is nothing but the Selenium hub, right? So this is basically the grid setup. And then finally, we need to set the desired capabilities in the code, which is required for the remote web driver. So note remote web driver, not the web driver. So as we all know that in Selenium, we try to create a web driver instance. So web driver is equal to new Firefox driver or Internet Explorer driver or Chrome driver, something like that, right? So we'll be using web driver there. But instead of web driver, we're going to use something called as remote web driver. Since we're going to execute the test in a remote machine, there are some APIs in Selenium which is available, just to put it very raw, just for an understanding purpose, I'm saying. So that's why this remote web driver is actually being created. So it makes your test to be executed in a remote machines, right? The same is applicable for Android as well. All right. So what is desired capabilities and what else do we need to set in the code, right? That's a very good question, of course. So desired capabilities are used to set some properties for the WebDriver, since not all server implementation will every WebDriver feature supports. So a couple of desired capabilities which we need to set in the Selenium grid setup for WebDriver client codes or a platform and the browser name. So these are the two keys and values that we need to set into this particular desired capabilities while trying to execute the Selenium grid setup, right? So I think let's see all these configuration in a demo instead of just talking all of them in a theoretical manner. All right. So for that, let me first flip to command prompt. So this is my command prompt, and what I'm going to do basically is I'm just going to navigate to my machine which has the jar file for Selenium to be executed, right? So again here we require the Selenium server jar file, not the Selenium client jar file, right? So what I'm going to do is, as I already told, I'm going to make this machine, this operating system, as a Selenium hub, and then I'm going to make one of my other virtual machine as the Selenium node, right? So this is going to be my Selenium hub, and that machine, that virtual machine, is going to be my Selenium hub machine. So for doing that, first of all, we need to make this particular machine as a Selenium hub. So just type the command java hyphen jar and then the Selenium server standalone jar file, right? So this is the particular jar file to make your Selenium hub, right? And here, as I already told, we're going to specify the role as the hub. If you just try to run this particular command, you can see that it is saying that Selenium Grid Hub is up and running. And it also says that nodes should register to this particular IP address, and this is the URL. So, which is pretty easy for anybody to say, okay, hey, this is the IP address which we need to use for registering our nodes, right? All right. So, how do we see this thing in a UI format into a browser? Actually, there is a very cool UI which is available in Selenium Grid Setup itself. So what you can do is just open the Chrome and just type http double slash localhost and colon 444 grid console. If you just open this, you can see it says grid console version 2.460. and you can hit this view config link, and you can see that this is showing me a configuration of the hub. So it says that the particular configuration is what is for this particular hub that you're running, right? And also shows all the parameters required for configuring into this hub, and also it says some other additional configurations which we'll talk about it later, right? Great. And now I need to open my virtual machine, which should actually register with this guy, this particular hub guy, right? So for that, I'm going to use Hyper-V, which is available with Microsoft Windows 10, Windows 8, 10 has got this particular feature. So I'm just going to connect to this particular machine. This is a very fast virtualization which is available in your Windows. And this is a Windows 8 machine, not the Windows 10. So I'm just going to log into this particular machine right now, right? So this is my virtual machine, and this is my Windows 10 machine. See, Windows 10 has got this start thing, right? Great. Awesome. And now I have already copied the jar file for the Selenium server, right? And that's available into my Selenium folder. And again, I have installed the Java in this machine, so no problem in running the jar files. Oops. So this is the Selenium server standalone, right? So which you guys already know, like this is what is the particular command to be executed. All right. And now I need to make the role here as the WebDriver, right? And as I already told, the the link which I should use for registering the hub is this. So I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to just type the command hub. Oops. All right. And then I'm going to just right click and hit paste. And you can see that it is pretty seamlessly copying the clipboard information from this host operating system to guest operating system very easily, and that's the power of Hyper-V as well, and it's pretty fast compared to your VirtualBox or VMware, anything else. All right, and then I'm going to specify the port number here as 5557, right? And now if I run this, you can see that it is registering the node to the hub, this. And you can see that this is the IP address of my hub, right? This is the IP address of my hub. And you can see that registered a node with this particular IP address, 192.168.0.7. So this is actually my IP address of this particular virtual machine. So both of them have now handshaked. And now you can go to this particular UI and just hit refresh or enter. You can see there is a new option available, and it shows that these are the browsers supported into that machine, and these are the configurations. Pretty great, right? Awesome. And now the only thing which I missed in this particular browser, in this particular machine, is I need to install the Firefox into this machine, because Chrome is already available into my host operating system, and I want to show with a different browser as well. So I'm going to just install the Firefox, and I'm going to just download this guy. I'm going to run the installer right now, and hopefully the Firefox will just install. I'm just going to pause this particular recording right now for the installation, and once the installation is done, we'll be back. All right, so seems like the Firefox browser is installed into my machine, so great. So I'm going to just close this guy, and then coming back to our host machine. All right, so now what I'm going to do is the next quest for us to is to set the desired capabilities and create a project also. So for that, I'm going to go to the Eclipse, and then I'm going to create a new project, which is a Java project, and I'm going to give a name as Selenium Grid maybe Selenium Grid is fine. And then I'm going to hit next, and I'm going to add the external jars, and here I'm going to add the Selenium server and also the Selenium client. I hit OK and hit finish. So this will create a Selenium Grid project for me, and then I'm just going to add a simple class file, and let's call this as com.example.grid, and the name is going to be starter of grid. Awesome. I'm going to create a main method, and I'm going to hit finish. Awesome. So the class has been created, and now, as I already told, we need to create a remote WebDriver instance, and also we need to set the desired capabilities, right? So for that, I'm going to create a remote WebDriver instance. So remote WebDriver, all right, and hit Control 1, and you can import the package, all right, and then desired capabilities. So desired capabilities cap is equal to new desired capabilities, and if you put dot here, you can see that it brings you up something called Firefox or Chrome or whatever browser you want to specify, right? Let's specify the Firefox here because I want to execute my test into a Firefox browser, right? Great. And then I'm going to specify two parameters which I already told, the platform and the browser name, right? So there is a method called set platform, right? This method will actually be used for setting the platform for your desired capability. All right, and there is an enumeration available called platform dot. We can see what kind of platform it is. Of course, you can see in the browser, you can see the platform is actually win underscore 8, sorry, win8 underscore 1. So this is the platform, right? Even if you hover here, you can see the name. So the browser name is equal to Firefox, and the platform is equal to win8 underscore 1. And that's the operating system which is registered from this particular machine. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to specify that, and I'm just going to specify that here as win8 underscore 1. Great. And I need to set the browser, right? So there is something called set browser name, and the browser name is going to be Firefox. Great. I'm going to save. So this is the two most important desired capabilities that you need to set. That's it. And then you can specify driver is equal to new remote web driver, not your Firefox driver, something like that. So here it can be any browser. Tomorrow, if you want to execute Chrome, you can also specify that. So it's going to be remote web driver, and we also need to pass the URL for your remote machine that you're running, right? So the remote machine's URL you can actually get from this guy, right? So I'm just going to copy the nodes URL. And one more thing we need to add here is the slash wd, which is WebDriver, and slash hub, right? So this is the URL, and then we need to set the capabilities, and that's what is the next argument, right? So cap, great, and it'll ask for the throws declaration. So I'm going to add the throws declaration as well. Okay, it's asking me to change it to static, so I'm going to make it to static. Yep, throws declaration came in. Great. And then we need to run the particular test into that particular remote machine. So for that, driver.navigate.to and you can specify the URL here. It's just nothing but http colon double slash www.google.com. Great. And also, let's perform a very simple operation in that particular remote machine. So for that, driver dot find element by name of q, and then do a send keys. Oops, why is this not coming? Dot send key. Yep. And here I'm going to type execute automation. Great. Super. And also let's try to click the button, and for that find element by name, and I'm going to say btng is the name of that particular button, which I know, and I'm going to save this guy. Right, that's it guys, it's all done. And now if I try to execute a test from here, you can see that the test will actually execute into my remote machine. That's what is the theoretical explanation, but I'm not sure how practically it works. So let's try to run this test and see how it works. If not, I don't know. Let's try to debug it afterwards. And I've created that, and you can see there is creating a new session for capabilities. Once I executed a test from there, it is creating a session into this remote machine. And now it should launch the Firefox browser. You can see that the Firefox browser also has launched, and Google is opened. It's typing the exit automation, and also click the button. Awesome, right? And this is what is the power of Selenium Grid. So simple, so straightforward, and it does the operation very easily and fluently, right? And this is what is this configuration is all about, right? So in the next topic, we'll talk more about how to run the test parallelly in multiple machines, meaning I'm going to execute the test in my host machine as well as in the guest machine, which is nothing but Windows 10 machine and Windows 8 machine test execution same time, that too in different browsers. And that we are going to do with a different testing framework, which is very familiar to you all guys, which is nothing but the testng. So let's not talk more about that right now. And this is what is the Selenium tidbits of configuring your Selenium grid and understanding the Selenium grid. So thank you very much for watching this video and have a great day.